We're here.
Oh, I am trying to watch the YouTube side. I have a new setup. So anybody that's watching the replay, if we're having any glitches, I have a completely new computer and new setup. So it may be a little bit of a test run here that we're working with today. So forgive me.
That just makes it
Hi.
fun.
Yeah, it just makes it fun for us.
Yeah.
All right, let me give our spiel real quick. This is Murder Mystery Haunted History. If you are new here, we cover a little bit of true crime, a little bit of the paranormal. From time to time, we cover the history of both true crime and paranormal. If you're new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if that sounds interesting to you. If you're a returning subscriber, we really, truly appreciate your support.
Mm-hmm.
And you already know that. We love you. And on Sundays, we do this live every week. And we tend to laugh and giggle and talk with the audience. So we don't mean any offense by that. It's just the audience usually cracks a few jokes and gets us giggling. So we mean no offense. And let's go ahead and, oh, I almost forgot. This is Nettie from MelNetteLivingFreeZipCodeless. Don't forget to check out the description. You can find her link there and subscribe to her, please.
Thank you.
All right. That I always forget something in the intro.
It's all good.
All right. And you're feeling better, right?
Thank God. Yes, I was able to kick it in 6 days, so I'm much better, ready to go. Miss being here, so I'm very excited to be with
That
you
was your
today.
second go with it. So you kicked it pretty quickly this time versus last time. So that's good.
Yeah, but what was ironic, it was the same month 2 years prior. So it's just crazy. So we don't want to do this again,
No.
but we bounce back quick. So that's good.
Well, you're just getting the sickness out at the beginning of the year, not the school year, the year. It's just getting it out of the
It
way.
was like, like you said, the beginning of a year, and Mal's like, this is all we wanted in the beginning of the following new year to kick
Yeah.
his butt. But thank you, Thrifty Angela. Me and Mal are doing so much better. And, hopefully this will be the end of it because we were able to get over it really fast compared to the last time. So.
And oh, the new computer. So I do gaming on this. I do. um,
You do?
I do gaming on Friday nights, and I've been actually doing it a little more often than Friday nights, but my computer would not keep up with the gaming. And the computer upstairs that my son built and was not using is a gaming computer. So we just swapped the computers. So I'm just making sure tonight is our first run through with the new setup. It's more powerful. It's a lot more powerful. So we just got to make sure
How
there's no glitches with
fun.
it. Oh, I was going to show everybody when they get in here later. So you'll get a little glimpse into what
Hmm.
my son's first run through of building a computer was. And it was his
Oh,
first run
wow.
through. Yeah, he builds them and people are quite impressed with them. And this one was his first build and it's quite hefty. So it's interesting. I'm
That's
proud of him.
exciting. And I love your gaming, BB. You're like getting really good at that. Yeah. I pop in
It's
and I
so
check you out. I'm like, oh,
it's so
except for
funny.
when you kicked yourself off the live.
That was because I told a horse joke and Uncle Lisa was on here. So that was
I
all my
saw
fault.
that. I went back to the first live and I saw it and you went, no, and boom, you're gone.
I was trying to be funny and I did it. It was a whole thing, but
Oh, wow.
my nephew is building a computer with my son. I have no idea how they do it. I don't either.
Yeah.
They're both really into gaming, right? I have no idea how any of that works, but yeah, it's crazy. Um, I have no my brain doesn't understand any of it. My son was down here trying to talk to me about it, and I was like, no compute.
Yeah.
If
It's
you
like
look back at when I first started playing games online with everybody on Friday nights, I couldn't even use a controller. I was having to use point and click games with a mouse. And I tried my hand at gaming with the controller and I was like, no, guys, this won't work. And then recently started gaming with the remote again. And we made it entirely through a game with me playing with the remote, and I have gotten more comfortable with it. So we're continuing on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into today's story, and hopefully more people will join us along the way.
And this story was brought to you by BB3.
Oh yeah, I found this and I thought it was
Yeah.
pretty interesting. It's all these
Yeah.
true crime stories with twist to them. So Nettie did all the research though, as she always does. So hey, Linda Barker. All right. So let's go back here just a second. And it's 12 true crime cases with unexpected plot twist.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom. I'll let you do the first one.
Okay. Number 1, 10-day-old Delmar Vera perished in a house fire. Just before Christmas in 1997, a fire started in the Philadelphia home of Luce Service. Fighting through the smoke and flames, she ran into the room where her 10-day-old daughter, Delmar, was sleeping in her crib, but saw no signs of her. Suffering burns to her face and at risk of passing out from smoke inhalation, she got out of the house with her 2 other children.
I can't imagine having to make that choice
Yeah.
to leave one child, and I just can't. Firefighters quickly put the blaze out, which was primarily contained to the baby's room. After an initial search for the newborn, authorities determined she had perished in the fire, which they said was caused by an overheated extension cord on a space heater. Human remains were never found in the debris, but investigators concluded any remains had been incinerated by the flames. Cuves, however, insisted that her child had been kidnapped, but because there was no evidence of a kidnapping aside from her desperate pleas, it was considered a closed case.
And that's just weird. I would think, even though they didn't find any remains and they said it basically was ash, you would think you would have something in there.
I kind of understand this, though, to a degree,
Uh-huh.
because it was a 10-day-old baby. So you're not talking about a
Like the bones
1-year-old. Yeah,
would be
you're not
too
like
soft.
the super soft bones, the
Yeah.
size of the child, all of that. And
Okay.
then the heat from the fire being so extensive in that room, I can understand why they would say there wouldn't be anything left. So I kind of understand it.
Okay.
But take into account that she says she was in the room and there was no baby in the room, that leaves you kind of
Right.
going, wait a minute, this should have been not a closed case. It should have been a we don't really know what happened here.
Yeah.
Howdy, howdy. Yeah, like Thrifty Angela said, yeah, but the mom said she didn't see her when she went in to grab her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where I say it should have been left open, not a concluded case. Hello, Roy and Becky. There you go.
For 6 years, Cuves mourned the loss of her child and wondered what had truly become of her. In 2003, at a birthday party for an acquaintance, Cuves saw a little girl who looked strikingly like her other children and was the exact same age as her lost Delmar. She was able to obtain some of the girl's hair that day under the ruse of getting bubblegum out of her hair. With assistance from a state legislator, she had police open an investigation and test the hair for DNA. The test proved the 6-year-old Alea
I think it's
Hernandez,
Alea.
Alea Hernandez was actually her daughter, Delmar.
See that, like that mom right there, she's like, "Oh, you look like my kid. You have bubble gum in your hair."
Yeah.
Snap.
Right?
She got smart. Hey, Tommy Travels. The woman who kidnapped Delmar was Carolyn Correa, a cousin of the child's father, Pedro Vera. Cuvez and Correa, okay, these names are really hard, I'm sorry, had only met the day before the fire when Correa came by the house. The following day, Correa returned, claiming she had left her purse upstairs. The blaze started as Correa left the house. Delmar, still going by Aaliyah, was reunited with her parents the next year, who were both given custody. Her abductor was convicted of kidnapping, arson, and other crimes. Okay, we got to stop right here because this story, I don't understand. If we break down just what we read right here, this woman is the cousin of the father. She came over the day before the fire. She came back the day of the fire. As she leaves, the fire breaks out. The baby's missing. You know that they are cousins. So how did like not an aunt, an uncle, not a grandma, not a grandpa realize, hey, this cousin has a child same age as your missing child, your missing child. Like, how did that not happen?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more family members involved in this crap, and they should have been convicted
Yeah.
as well. Like, I'm not understanding this.
And like we were saying earlier, BB, there had to have been gatherings prior to this,
Mhm.
for the family members to come over or whatnot and say, where does this baby come from? Because she wasn't pregnant, unless they didn't say anything about her faking a pregnancy, but all of a sudden she has a newborn.
Yeah, maybe she was pregnant and maybe she was, or maybe she was faking a pregnancy. Maybe she lost the baby. Maybe that's just something they didn't add in the story. But
Mm-hmm.
either
Yeah.
way, like, I don't know. There's the timing of that seems so suspicious.
Yeah.
And like you and I, Nettie, were talking about, they have the sense, I cannot say the word. The parties they have for like the 13-year-old girls.
Oh, the
Uh
quinceañeras. Yeah.
yeah, those things. They have those. They have these
Uh-huh.
huge family gatherings. I don't understand how nobody picked up on this sooner.
Yeah.
30 Angela, I'd be asking questions. Yeah.
Exactly.
This this whole thing blows my mind. This story was the one story I read and I sent it to Nettie and I was like, this is insanity. Please read these. It's
Yeah. Let's put this together.
wild, but sounds like they left out some information. Yeah, I mean, these are
Yeah.
like short introductions to these wild, crazy stories for
Yeah.
sure. They're just to make you like realize some of the crazy twists and turns that are out there
Makes you
in this
go,
world.
try to figure it out.
Makes you think a little bit.
Yeah.
This one's crazy too.
Yep. Number
Dali
2.
Astrich, is that how you say her name? Claimed her husband was killed by a burglar. This lady looks nuts.
She looks creepy. Oh my gosh.
Was the husband and the mother separated? You know what? I don't know. I don't think they were at the time because the
Yeah.
baby was only 10 days old. So when the baby
Yeah.
went missing, no, I don't think so. You go, Nettie.
A petrified wife locked in the closet, her husband shot dead, lying on the bedroom floor. That was the scene police officers discover after responding to reports of shots fired in a Southern California home in 1922. It looked like a robbery gone wrong, and that was the wife's story. But the tale of Dolly Ostrich was far more complex. While Berga, Dolly Ostrich, and Fred William Ostrich had been married for about 25 years at the time of the shooting. Fred worked long hours and often preferred laying his hands on a bottle of whiskey over his wife.
I mean, did you see her? She looks a little
I would
nutty.
drink too.
The whiskey was looking mighty fine. So one day, when Fred sent Otto Sandhuber, a 17-year-old working, this I don't understand, but I'll keep going. So one day, when Fred sent Otto Sandhuber, a 17-year-old working at his factory, over to the house to repair Dolly's sewing machine, Otto and Dolly began having an affair. But with nosy neighbors and the inconvenience of hotel rooms, the two were perplexed as to how they could see each other often without getting caught. Then Dolly had the idea to hide Otto in her attic. During the day, Otto and Dolly would cavort around the house, making bathtub gin, and spend as much time together as they liked. At night, Otto would retreat to his tiny lair to write pulp fiction novels and hide until the following day. Just crazy.
Yes.
Just hiding up in the attic.
When the ostriches, say that fast, moved from Milwaukee to Los Angeles, Dolly's secret attic lover moved with them. One night, Aldo heard Dolly and Fred arguing loudly. He came to his lover's defense with a pistol. A struggle over the gun ensued, and Fred was shot and killed. Otto set the scene by locking Dolly in the closet and hiding himself away in the attic, along with the guns. For years, police believed Dolly's story of a robbery gone wrong, as there was simply no evidence to the contrary.
Okay, the story goes on, but I have to stop here for 1 second and ask a couple of questions. One, what did she do with him when they moved? Did she like pack him in a trunk and move him with them? Is that how he moved with them? He was just packed away in a box or a trunk like she did the rest of her belongings? Like I'm totally confused as to how she moved him and the husband didn't see him. That's confusing. And and then I did the police not search the attic?
I
Or did she,
know,
like,
right?
say the robber ran away and they were just like, "Okay," and they didn't search the house at all? Like,
He was in that trunk
he was in
in
his
the
moving
attic.
trunk. He was still hiding in his moving trunk. Okay, got it. That is until nearly a decade after the murder, when a subsequent boyfriend of Dolly's, it gets even stranger. A subsequent boyfriend of Dolly's admitted to police that she'd asked him to ditch a gun in a nearby tar pit. And a neighbor came forward saying she had similarly asked him to bury a gun for her. Though Dolly had both another boyfriend and another husband, Otto had continued to live in the attic for much of the decade. But by the time authorities had enough evidence to arrest Otto, the statute of limitations of manslaughter charges had run out, and a hung jury failed to find Dolly guilty of conspiracy. Both walked free, although they seemingly went their separate ways at last. She had another husband, another boyfriend, and Otto lived in the attic the
In the
entire
attic.
time, and they both walked free from charges. What the hell kind of story is this? This sounds like
Cray,
fiction.
cray.
It sounds like fiction. This does not sound real. Okay.
Oh, man.
Good afternoon, Tracy. Otto isn't too smart. Maybe Otto was just like, dude, I don't know where to go. I just This is my life now.
He loved
Maybe
the
she
attic,
had,
apparently.
or maybe she just like held the murder over his head and was like, you can't leave or I'll tell the cops. But I don't understand why she was asking everyone else to bury the gun. Why didn't she just bury the gun?
Yeah,
Like,
or
that
Otto
doesn't
could
make
have done
sense.
it, you know?
Yeah. Well, she didn't let Otto out of the house. Remember? He wasn't allowed to leave the house because people would see him.
Mhm.
So he
Yeah.
couldn't really bury the gun. I don't know. It makes sense to me. But that whole story sounds like fiction, but it's actually real. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Didn't discover my husband's true identity for 11 years.
It's insanity.
Mhm. He looks crazy. In the mid 90s, Stanford graduate Sandra Boss was getting her MBA at Harvard when her sister introduced her to a man named Clark Rockefeller, descendant of the famous business family. He wore custom made designer clothing, collected expensive art, and had an upscale New York apartment. Boss was charmed, and the two married shortly thereafter. Boss and Rockefeller spent the next 11 years together. They enjoyed a stable life, thanks in large part to Boss's job as a consultant and personal wealth. The two had a daughter, Ray Starro Mills Rockefeller, lovingly referred to as Snooks in 2001.
Yeah, I think that they might have made it into a movie. I'm not sure though, Thrifty
Mhm.
Angela. But their marriage soon began to crack. Rockefeller was a stay-at-home dad and didn't hesitate to spend Boss's money to keep up his appearances. His stories too became inconsistent, and Boss was often baffled when Rockefeller would suddenly insist, seemingly out of the blue, that they needed to move again. Boss served Rockefeller with divorce papers in 2007. Since her husband was jobless and a complete mystery, Boss was awarded full custody. In 2008, Clark Rockefeller was enjoying one of the 3 court approved visitations with his daughter as his ex wife waited in a Boston hotel room nearby. While walking through Boston Common, Rockefeller disappeared with his daughter. How does that even happen when it's a oh, it wasn't a supervised, it was just a
Mm-mm.
visit.
Yeah,
Ugh,
yeah.
got it.
As in investigators attempted to track down Rockefeller, they found more questions than answers. He didn't have a social security card, a driver's license, or even a credit card in his own name. When his picture was shown on the news asking for leads, callers gave at least 4 different identities to go with the man shown on screen. Investigators were flummoxed. Did I say that right? Flummoxed?
Yeah.
Then a friend came forward with what would become crucial evidence. Rockefeller had had a glass of wine at the house the night before, and the glass had not been washed.
DNA. Police lifted prints off the glass and got a match to one of Christian Karl Gerhardsstrider, a German immigrant who had come to the United States almost 30 years earlier. Gerhardsstrider grew up in a middle-class family in a small town in Germany. He moved to the US as a teenager, where he stayed with a Connecticut family while claiming to be an exchange student at a local high school. He later got married and divorced, landing a green card, and moved to Los Angeles under the name of Christopher Chichester. Did he make these names up?
Yeah,
Jeez Louise.
no. He made himself at home in an upper class neighborhood, weaving a tale of royal English ancestries and proclaiming himself a TV producer. He lived in the back house of a woman named Dee Shosh, her son and daughter in law, John and Linda Shohas, lived on the property. As well, the two went missing in 1985, and Christopher Chichester disappeared shortly afterwards. The skeletal remains of the couple were discovered in the backyard of the house in 1994, but by the time Christopher Chichester had become Christopher Crow.
The names, my goodness. Was thinking if he made the names, he picked some hard ones to pronounce, right? Hard ones to spell so nobody could
Yeah.
tell the police, probably. Crow worked at and was fired from a number of high level jobs on Wall Street with no degree, no experience, and no social security number. As people began to catch wind of his act, and investigators tracked Sohus's missing truck back to him. He disappeared again, later turning up in Sandra Boss's life as Clark Rockefeller. After a 5-day manhunt for him and his kidnapped daughter, Clark Rockefeller had become Chip Smith. Now he picked an easy name.
Yeah. But his newest, I'm already getting
Alias.
didn't last long. The owner of the carriage house he rented called investigators, and Snooks was safely returned to her mother, while Christopher Clark Chip was finally taken into custody. Gerhard Strater was convicted of kidnapping his daughter, as well as the murder of John Shohas. Linda's body has never been found, and he is serving a sentence of 27 years to life in prison.
That seems so short.
Mhm.
27 years? Sherry Rasmussen's case as a robbery gone wrong. On February 24th, 1986, John Rutten had been trying to get a hold of his wife, Sherry Rasmussen, all day long. But because she hadn't felt good earlier, he didn't think too much of the fact that she didn't answer any of his phone calls. Pulling into the garage of their Los Angeles area home, he noticed glass on the ground and Rasmussen's car missing. Still, he assumed she'd merely hit her mirror while backing out. Then Rutten noticed the entry door was slightly ajar. He entered the house and called out his wife's name, just before he saw her lying on the floor, motionless. Right, Thrifty Angela?
Yeah. Her face was bloodied and bruised. She had a bullet hole straight through her chest. He desperately checked for a pulse, but she was gone. In disbelief, he called 911. The detective assigned to the case was Lyle Mayer. He carefully documented the scene and made note of the electronics stacked in the living room near Rasmussen's body. To him, it was clear that whoever committed the crime had intended to leave with those items and for whatever reason had not grabbed them upon exiting the scene. He interviewed Rutten, her newlywed husband, to do his due diligence, but in just a matter of days, he declared the incident to be one of a burglary gone wrong.
For 23 years, the case went unsolved until Los Angeles Police Department detectives took another look at the case as part of their cold case homicide unit in 2009. It was then that they noticed the inconsistencies. Sherry had a bite mark on her arm, which likely fit a woman, and most burglaries are carried out by men. Rutten's ex-girlfriend, Stephanie Lazarus, had been paying unannounced visits to John's home, and the shattered glass on the ground that Rutten had seen was from a bullet traveling from inside the house, not outside in, as might be expected in a break-in.
Suddenly, detectives had a prime suspect for what was apparently now premeditated murder. Stephanie Lazarus, a fellow detective of the LAPD, before bringing her in for questioning, the detectives did some more digging. Sure enough, Lazarus had been off duty on the day of Rasmussen's murder. And just a few weeks after the crime, she had reported a gun stolen, presumably because she had ditched the murder weapon. Detectives interviewed Lazarus under the guise of a friendly chat amongst colleagues. They told Lazarus, who worked in art theft, that they wanted her help on a case.
Okay, y'all got to realize that I don't read all of these stories. And that part just shocked the crap out of me. I had no idea she was a detective. What? There's the twist.
Yep.
She gave vague answers about how well she knew or remembered John Rutten or his wife, even when asked about reports of her jealousy confronting Rasmussen, this name, over her relationship with John. But detectives didn't need her confession. They already had a positive match to her DNA. In 2012, Stephanie Lazarus was found guilty of murdering Sherry Rasmussen and given a sentence of 27 years to life in prison. Was the boyfriend involved? Or was she was just jealous?
She was just jealous. Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? And even still, 27 years to life doesn't seem very long to me as well.
No, that doesn't seem long. Plus, like, you would think
Hmm.
she was a detective. She would have not left her DNA behind. Not like I'm trying to make a criminal be better, but like,
Yeah, that
you as
she
a
would be able to
detective.
cover her crime better.
Yeah, you would think. Innocent man behind bars.
In 1982, teenage sweethearts Marilyn Green and Jerry Hillard were found murdered in Washington Park in Chicago. Anthony Porter was sentenced to death after being found guilty of the slayings in 1983. On the eve of his execution, he received a stay on his execution from the Illinois Supreme Court, citing concerns about his low IQ. After Porter received the stay on his execution, journalism students at Northwestern University and participants in the Medial Innocent Project looked at the case.
So I want him, but you can't have him either. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The students led their professor, David Protest, led by their professor, David Protest, obtained new evidence and identified who they believed was the real killer, a man named Alstory Simon. Showing up at Simon's house, the self-declared investigators told him they had all of the evidence proving his guilt and that the police were on their way to arrest him. Simon confessed to the killings, and the confession was caught on tape. It's worth noting that the new evidence obtained included a statement from Simon's now ex-wife and her incarcerated nephew, putting Simon at the scene of the crime. This statement was later recanted. So this professor and his students just showed up there and were like, we have all this evidence. The police are coming. You're guilty. And then he was like, yeah, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody going to make me say I'm guilty if I'm not guilty. That's something I don't understand about criminals, why they say they're guilty when they're not. I mean,
Hmm.
I get that they're in interrogation rooms forever, but like this situation, I don't understand why he said that. But again, he was young. Good grief, these names, right? They're all hard.
Tongue twisters.
People come on the channel and in the comment section, you guys should go back and check some of the comment sections. There'll be people in there like, your voice is annoying or you can't pronounce words. And it's like, you give it a try then. I don't know what to tell you. Like, sorry about that.
Yeah. It is what it is. To obtain his confession, the student showed Simon video proof of another witness who said Simon committed the crime. However, the witness was an actor that the students had hired, despite their shoddy and legally questionable detective work. The students with the Innocent Project were successful in getting Simon convicted of homicide and clearing Porter's name. Simon quickly realized that he had been duped into confessing, and he'd been promised a short prison sentence and subsequent big money from the investigators, which failed to materialize.
Oh, Thrifty Angela, it doesn't bother me. I think one of them said my voice sounds like Walter Cronkite, and I was like, not even close. Like, y'all, people can be mean on social media, so it's like whatever. I laugh
Yeah.
about it. I can't believe this guy was just like, yeah, I'll take a short sentence. I don't know. I don't understand that stuff. His defense lawyer, no.
Oops.
Go back.
There.
There we go. His defense lawyer was also a personal friend of the private investigator working with the students. What? And advised him to take a plea deal. Simon served 15 years in prison until the county prosecutor took another look at the case and vacated his conviction, in part due to a documentary investigation into the case. A Murder in the Park. The film showed that the journalism students neglected to interview witnesses who put Anthony Porter at the scene and didn't fit their narrative, and suggests that Porter may have been the guilty party all along. What the heck?
I know, it's crazy. In 2014, Simon was finally a free man, and he promptly initiated a defamation lawsuit against the Medill Innocent Project and the school, selling for a confidential amount. According to the lawsuit, with the blessing of Northwestern University, David Protest framed an innocent man, Simon, so that death row inmate Anthony Porter could become a poster boy for the bid to end execution in Illinois.
So I don't know that I agree with ending executions, but I do
Yeah.
believe in like they need to make sure that people are. That's where I stand, like with the whole. If someone's 100% guilty and you know they're 100% guilty, like their DNA's all over it, you caught them in the act on video, like that kind of stuff. Then execution is just the way to go. Like I don't know. I have like a very. I don't know if it's questionable, then no, but I don't
Yeah.
know. Carolyn Watson spent 6 days believing she and her boyfriend had been abducted by a satanic cult. I still don't get it. Why would you say you did it when you did not? I don't either. I don't
Yeah.
understand why people do that.
Mm.
I think that it has something to do with like when you're in the small room, you lose track of time and you're just wanting out of that room. So I get that. But I don't know other than that. Carolyn Watson, 17, and her boyfriend Julian Butchwald, 22, were avid churchgoers in the area of Melbourne, Australia. They'd been dating for 2 years when Butchwald invited Watson on a romantic picnic in the Australian countryside. As they were driving, Butchwald stopped briefly and got out to inspect a dead animal on the side of the road. The next thing Watson knew, she was being blindfolded and tied up by a I don't know that word, masked man, who then stripped off her clothes, threw her in the back of a trunk, and drove. My dog's yelling at me. I guess he's got to go out. I'll try to be back before you end. Okay. Thank you, Thrifty Angela.
When the vehicle finally stopped, Watson, blindfolded, was removed by her boyfriend. Butchwald, too, was nude and claimed that had been both been taken by a satanic cult and left alone in the wilderness. He managed to untie himself and help her do the same. The pair wandered through the bushland for almost a week, despite the fact that both were very religious and had pledged to not have before marriage. Butchwald continuously suggested they just get married and consummate it then and there in order to stay warm.
Oh my gosh. You've got to be kidding me right now. All of this for some You gotta be kidding me. The frightening debacle came to an end when the duo were found by a farmer who alerted the police at first. Butchwald continued his claim that the two had been kidnapped. Police did have a letter left at Watson's parents' house, supposedly sent by the kidnapper, that had satanic markings all over it. But after being confronted by the police with their suspicions, Butchwald quickly gave up the act and admitted he had staged the whole thing. When asked why he would have put his girlfriend through the ordeal, he admitted he was trying to convince her to marry him so that they could put that celibacy stuff behind them once and for all. Oh my gosh. Dude, go get a different girlfriend or go buy yourself some. Like, seriously, there are better plans than what you just did. Well, that is a nightmare right there. I still can't get that book out of my head that I read when I was 16. Michelle Remembers, a true story about a cult in BC, Canada. Wow, I would be so upset with that guy. Oh my God, I would be done with men.
Yeah.
I would probably become a lesbian. Like, no joke. I would never trust a man again after that ordeal. Can you imagine being
A
naked
whole
in the
week.
woods? Yeah, naked in the woods for a week. How freezing cold that would be.
And then
All
what did
because
they
a man
eat?
wanted your vagina.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would
Like JJ.
then, yeah, I would then become a lesbian. No doubt. Forget it. That is the craziest thing. Trust would be gone, yeah.
Russ Faria was convicted of killing his wife. Betsy Faria and her husband of 10 years, Russ Faria, spent Christmas 2011 together. Earlier that year, Betsy had received a terminal cancer diagnosis. And despite the fact that the two had plenty of ups and downs in their marriage, they were determined to make the most of the remaining time together. 2 days later, that remaining time was cut short. Russ made a frantic call to 911. He said he had come home from his weekly game night with friends and found Betsy laying dead in their Missouri home. She had been stabbed more than 60 times, with a kitchen knife still protruding from her neck. He told the 911 dispatcher that he feared she had taken her own life due to her diagnosis.
I think we actually covered the full story on this one. But this is a crazy story. It happened maybe 30 minutes from me.
Yeah, crazy.
Investigators didn't agree and found Russ's behavior suspicious. They arrested him for his wife's murder. Her friend, and the last person to see her alive, Pamela Hupp, was the lead witness for the prosecution. She claimed Betsy had recently made her the beneficiary of her life insurance policy so that she could then pass the money to Betsy's daughters from a previous marriage and bypass Russ. Furthermore, she helped detectives find a document on Betsy's computer that detailed her alleged fear of her husband. The jury bought it, and Russ Vieira was convicted of killing Betsy. 60 times and was self-inflicted? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Russ appealed and eventually won a retrial, in which he was found not guilty. He was freed after spending nearly 4 years in prison. Shortly thereafter, the truth started to come out in 2016 when Hupp shot and killed Louis Gumpenberger inside her home, saying he was a hitman hired by Russ to go after her. Gumpenberger was actually a mentally impaired man that Hupp had lured into her home to further implicate Russ.
Hey, Chrissy Mama, no problem. No problem. I just appreciate you being here.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Larice Jose, thanks for being here. Hupp eventually pled guilty to Grumpenberg's murder and, as of 2021, is awaiting trial for the murder of of Betsy Ferrara. Prosecutors believe Hupp inserted herself into Betsy's life out of greed, killing her while she was weak after a chemotherapy appointment and framing Russ. None of the insurance money that Hupp received ever went to Betsy's daughters. Police have also reevaluated the death of Hupp's 77-year-old mother, who mysteriously fell from a balcony. Hupp was the last to see her alive. And I can actually fill you in on the rest of this story. Hupp was found guilty of her best friend's murder, and the husband was cleared. It was not him. It was Hupp. Pamela Hupp is the one who did it, and she killed her mother, and she killed the special man. And the reason that they were able to catch her killing the special man was because she tried to hire a lady. And okay, the special man came into her house. She told him that she was filming for a advertisement or something, and he needed to be an actor, and she tried to hire a lady down the road to do the same thing, and the lady felt like something was off, and so that lady told the police when this started to kind of break, and they had her on video trying to hire this lady, and so it all didn't add up, and so then they, everything led to everything, and they were able to catch her. So she was found guilty, and she is sitting in jail. So
Great.
Tracy said, yeah, I think that makes sense. I remember this story. Yeah, I think we covered it on this channel, but it's been quite some time since we covered it. And we cover a lot of stories, so it's hard to remember all of them. But that one's local to me, so it's been covered quite a bit in my local news.
Yeah.
Nettie
Chrissy.
Nance was 24 when she discovered she was actually Carlina White.
At age 17, Nettie Nance was a senior in high school and pregnant with her daughter. Excited to become a mother, she sought out necessary parental care to take advantage of the state benefits. She asked her own mother for her birth certificate. Her mother stalled, and Nettie became impatient, rummaging through her mother's things herself.
It's never good.
No.
Hello, Shaco. When she brought the birth certificate she had found into the Bureau of Vital Statistics in New Haven, Connecticut, she was accused of using a false identity. Her mother, Aunt Petway, explained that Nettie's biological parents had abandoned her, which was why she didn't have the appropriate birth certificate. The real story was a little more complicated.
Carlina White was born to Joy White and Carl Tyson, a healthy 8 pounds, on July 15, 1987. A couple of weeks later, Carlina spiked a high fever. Her parents brought her back to the Harlem hospital, where a nurse told them that Carlina would need to spend the night in the hospital. The nurse didn't have a name tag and had an odd demeanor, but the tired young couple didn't think too much of it.
Yeah, a mother's nightmare. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Tyson went home to sleep before work, and White went to grab a few things before returning to the hospital. Just a little over an hour after they had left, Carlina went missing. The one lead detectives had fizzled quickly, and no other traces of the baby or a suspect were found. White and Tyson, both depressed and angry, eventually drifted apart, each of them blaming the other for their pain. I can imagine.
Anne Pettyway grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and had a minor record. In 1987, she told friends and family she was pregnant, and shortly thereafter had a baby as proof. No one knew who the father was, and she didn't say. Her 2004 pregnancy and subsequent revelation from Pettyway started Nettie's own private search for her true identity. The family aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents that she grew up with couldn't give her any more information about her past.
But one of her aunts did encourage her to call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That phone call led to pictures shared and swabs of DNA being taken. The DNA proved Nettie Nance was indeed Carolina White, and her parents were overjoyed to know she was alive and well. Carl Tyson and Joy White were reunited with their daughter in 2011 after she'd been missing for 23 years.
Wow.
You know, at 23, growing up with a family that loved you, because I'm sure that family loved her from the time she was a baby to the time she was 23. They didn't steal her. The mom stole her, right? And then loved her, and that family loved her. And then now she's got this family that was her biological family. That has got to be a hell of a trip in your brain, because now you're going to get to know all these other people, but you grew up your whole life with this other family. It's not like you're just going to not have them as your family. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
got to be a trip for your brain to try to understand that. This one.
Jennifer Pan seemed like the perfect daughter. Did you know this one?
I do know this one.
Yeah. Jennifer Pan was raised in Canada by her parents, Bích Ha and Hui Han Pan, both immigrants from Vietnam. They earned enough to buy a home in an upscale neighborhood, drive nice cars, and pay for their daughter's skating and piano lessons. The parents had worked hard and expected their child to do the same.
To outward appearances, Pans seemed like the perfect high achieving household. So the night of November 8th, 2010 came as a shock. Three armed men rushed into the Pan house. They tied Jennifer Pan, I'm going to say Pan, to a banister upstairs and shot both of her parents. Her mother passed instantly, but against the odds, her father survived. But as investigators spoke with him in the hospital, he had a strange memory. Before losing consciousness, he remembered seeing his daughter chatting amicably with one of the intruders.
Can you imagine having that memory?
Ugh. I think we got a frozen Nettie. Got a frozen Nettie. To wait for her to come back for a minute. Let's see if she pops back in unfrozen. If not, I'll go ahead and start reading here. All right, I'm going to drop Nettie down until she waves at me. All right, it turned out that while Pan seemed to meet her parents' high expectations, she'd been living a double life. Pan kept her academics a secret from her parents. They believed she was a straight A student, but she earned mostly B's and failed calculus her senior year. Because of that, Ryerson University rescinded its offer of acceptance. Fearing their reaction, she never told her parents any of this and went through the motions of college life, attending freshman welcome week, buying school books, and telling them she received scholarships, so no tuition was owed. So she just lied the whole way through. She'd packed up her school bag and headed out for the day, going to the library or visiting her boyfriend or even working a part-time job. Pan continued the lie for more than 2 years. 2 years? Even telling her parents she had been accepted to the pharmacology program at the University of Toronto. Eventually, her academic career was revealed to be the fiction that it was. Her parents were outraged. Not long afterward, her boyfriend of 7 years, Daniel Wong, broke up with her. Pan was devastated. After reconnecting with an old high school friend, she started imagining life without her father, whom she blamed for her current situation. You ready to come back up, Nettie? Okay. All righty. Next one's yours.
Okay.
There you go.
Pam later reconnected with Wong, and the two began exchanging text messages about killing her parents. Wong had a friend, whom he referred to as a homeboy, who would be willing to complete the hit for $10,000. On the night in question, Pan unlocked the door for the intruders, and Pan was eventually arrested. And soon, Wong and all of Pan's accomplices were apprehended, as well during the lengthy trial. Pam's many lies and personalities were revealed. The case also sparked media debate about parenting and the psychological impact of pressure on kids.
I understand the pressure is overwhelming and all of that, but like at the same time, does that equate to murder? I don't know. For me, I don't think anything equates to murder.
Yeah.
No, I got to take that back. The R word, certain amount of abuse, physical abuse. So I guess maybe the certain amount of mental abuse could push someone there. I don't know. I can't judge on that. So maybe I'm wrong to say that. I spoke too quickly. She received 2 life sentences, one for the death of her mother and the second for the attempted murder of her father. Her sentence includes a non-communication order as well. She is forbidden from contacting her father or brother unless they want her to. Interesting. I understand she can't contact them. I wonder if her father has any remorse for the way that he was towards her to push her to do something like that, and if he wants contact with her.
Yeah.
Or if he's still very stern and like, I don't want anything to do with her. She's a disappointment.
Bernice Novak's death was ruled an accident. Bernice Novak was the widow of famed Fontainebleau builder Ben Novak Sr. The famous Miami Beach Hotel launched the two Novaks into the world of celebrities, athletics, presidents, and foreign dignitaries. Bernice and Ben lived a glamorous life until Ben passed of a heart and lung failure in 1985. For years after his death, Bernice lived a quiet life in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But in 2009, Bernice was found dead in her home at the age of 86. Investigators chalked it up to a bad fall that led to a lethal amount of brain damage. Nobody asked questions or thought anything differently. That is, until her son, Ben Novak Jr., was found murdered just 3 months later.
That's a little suspicious. Mm-hmm. By the way, that other one was on the news a lot in Canada. Oh, it was?
Wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty popular case. What do you think about that case, Tracy? Do you think she maybe had a little bit of reason to do what she did because of how strict her parents was? Do you kind of maybe understand a little bit why? Despite Bernice's wealth and prior fame, the authorities hadn't even considered that the matriarch may have been murdered. A hard-hitting and motivated journalist, Julie Knipe Brown, exposed the investigative deficiencies, but her suspicions weren't taken seriously until the police in the Rye Brook, where Ben Jr. was killed, contacted the investigators of Bernice's death with some interesting news. They had a suspect in custody who had confessed to killing Ben Jr. at the behest of someone else. The hired killer also said he'd killed Bernice and gave details on the type of weapon he used and how she died. Finally, authorities took a closer look at the case.
Mm. The following year, Ben's estranged wife, Narcy Novak, was arrested for the death of her husband and her mother in law. Her brother, who was also arrested, and the two were found guilty of arranging the murder of the two Novaks. The defense had claimed that the real culprit was Narcy's daughter from a previous marriage, May Abad, who wanted to cash in on her stepfather's vast estate, which included expensive Batman memorabilia. The prosecution argued that Narcy had feared her husband would leave her for his mistress, cutting her out of the family wealth, and Narcy is serving a life sentence. I guess nothing happened to her daughter.
Body was exhumed. I do, but murder, I don't agree with that though. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Glenn Turner was 28 and had recently accomplished his dream of becoming a police officer in Cobb County, Georgia. When he met Lynn Turner, he thought his life was complete. The two were married in 1993, despite hesitation and concerns from his family and closest friends. Lynn had been cold towards them and controlling of Glenn, in their opinion, but still Glenn went ahead with the nuptials and made Lynn his life insurance beneficiary. The marriage, it turned out, would be short-lived. Lynn ran up large bills on their credit cards and spent less and less time at home. Rumors were flying that she was having an affair, or multiple affairs, perhaps even seeing some of Glenn's co-workers.
By the end of the year, Glenn Turner had accepted that his marriage was failing, and he told his family he was going to leave Lynn. Shortly thereafter, he came down with the worst flu of his life, telling friends he could hardly walk or talk. He was so ill. Not long after, he was found deceased in his bed. On the day of the funeral, Lynn made a phone call about Glenn's life insurance policy while en route to the cemetery. While some may have suspected Lynn, there was no evidence of any foul play.
So that's never going to make sense to me. If I if I was to off somebody, I'm going to wait like a couple of months and like just throwing this out there, FBI, whoever's following me here. I'm going to wait a couple of months. I'm going to mourn. I'm going to cry. I'm going to wear black. I'm going to play the part. And then I'm going to call the life insurance company. I am not going to be calling the life insurance company on the ride to the funeral.
Right?
People
Oh
are
my
not
God.
smart. Or the day after. Like, what?
She was
I don't know.
already thinking on where to spend the money, you know?
I guess I get like people like I'm not rich, right? I'm not rich. I sometimes we live paycheck to paycheck, other times we have a little bit of a savings account. Like every week's different, right? So I get like maybe they need the money when someone passes away because they need to pay for the funeral or whatever. So I get why you would need to call pretty soon after someone passes away, but like on the way to the cemetery? Nah. Roy and Becky, I think I remember this one. By the end of the year, Glenn Turner had accepted that his marriage was failing.
Oh,
And
this is the one I just read.
oh, you just read this one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
But 6 years later, a former coworker of Glenn's learned that Lynn had been seeing a firefighter named Randy Thompson and was pregnant with his child. Well, there's why she needed the money. The couple had 2 children and remained together for about 5 years, although they never married. Lynn did convince Thompson to get a life insurance policy. She was the beneficiary. Eventually, Thompson decided the relationship was no longer working. He moved into his own place, and not long afterwards, he came down with the flu, just like Glenn Turner. Thompson passed in his bed shortly thereafter. Oh, geez.
Crazy.
And again, did she not think this was going to look suspicious?
Yeah. Glenn's mother, Kathy, contacted the Thompsons family to share the tragic consequences.
Yeah. Coincidence.
Coincidence. Okay. Glenn family urged authorities to have his body exhumed so a full autopsy could be done. Samples taken from Thompson's tissues were compared with samples taken from Glenn Turner. Alexa crystals were found in tissue samples from both bodies, making one thing clear. Both men had perished of antifreeze poisoning, not the flu. Lynn Turner was found guilty of both murders and is sentenced to life in prison.
Knock it off, Shaco. You've been on a bad behavior list the last couple times, Mr. Shaco. Chewing gum helped solve a 34-year-old cold case.
Chewing gum.
In 1976, Blanche, we're just going to say Blanche.
Yeah.
Kimball's neighbors started to worry. Nobody had seen their friendly. Also, welcome back, Thrifty Angela and Linda
Yeah.
Barker. Okay. Nobody had seen their friendly 70-year-old neighbor in quite some time. They called police to her Augusta Me home, where they found a gruesome scene. Kimball had been brutally stabbed to death and was lying in a puddle of her own blood. Neighbors were shocked and police were befuddled. Pictures of the scene were taken and evidence was collected, but investigators could not make an arrest. The lone suspect they could come up with was a homeless man who had briefly lived in Kimball's home well before the murder. He was seen breaking into a house in the neighborhood not long after the murder, but he fled town before he could be apprehended. With the only suspect nowhere to be found, the case went cold.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, that was a lot.
34 years later, in 2010, Gary Robb was homeless, living on the streets of Seattle. He got into a physical altercation with another homeless man, cutting his stomach with his knife. The victim fled the scene, but police took Robb into custody and entered his knife into evidence. That's when a match came up between the DNA on Robb's knife and the DNA left behind at Kimball's house and the murder scene. When cold case investigators in Maine saw the DNA belonging to Robb, who had gone as Gary Robert Wilson in the 1970s, they finally had their second chance.
I'm sorry if you guys can hear the dogs like slapping up the water. Apparently, somebody decided that they didn't know what the dogs wanted upstairs, so they let them downstairs. And simply, the dogs just wanted some water. They could have given them water. So I apologize. Okay. I apologize then, Shaco. If it was a compliment, I apologize. You know I don't know words. I'm hungry. Coconut, sweet and sour shrimp fried rice. Oh, that sounds good. Okay. I'm starving. I'm making fajitas tonight.
Mmm.
They're marinating. With help from Seattle authorities, the Maine State Police approached Robb on the street and asked if he would like to participate in the chewing gum survey. Robb was game and he unknowingly chewed on a couple of pieces of gum for the detectives, handing them the exact fresh DNA they needed. Robb was arrested and convicted of the murder of Blanche, finally closing one of Maine's oldest cold cases. Oh my gosh.
Here you go.
Criminals are so stupid. What in the heck? That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
All right. I know that was a little bit longer than usual, but I think that was worth it. That was 12 absolutely crazy twists to stories. So, which one was your favorite? I need to know over in the comment section which one was your absolute favorite twist. And Nettie, which one do you think was your favorite?
I think the one with the stupid boyfriend in the attic. That was just crazy to me. How he followed her.
Yeah, that was crazy. I
Yeah.
think that one probably should be a movie. If it's not already a
Mhm.
movie, it should be a movie. We're doing
Oh, they're
pancakes,
making
sausage
breakfast
links.
for dinner. I love breakfast for dinner.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds really good. I agree with Nettie. That was my favorite. Okay, so Thrifty Angela likes
Yeah.
that one too.
It's a little strange. It was pretty weird.
Yeah, I think that one, I think that was my favorite.
Mhm.
Although it okay, so that's my favorite, I think should be turned into a movie.
Yeah.
But the like the one with the daughter missing has my mind boggled, or the one with the baby that went missing and then ends
Uh-huh.
up being in the family.
Yeah.
That one has my mind the most boggled because I can't understand how the kid was in the family and no one knew that the kid was in the family. So my mind's pretty boggled with that one. So the most weird and boggling one would be that one for me.
And I think the one with the boyfriend should be like on the most dumbest criminals or something like that, where
Where
they're
he tried to
wandering
the
for a
one where
week
he
naked.
the Satanic Woods one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be on Dumbest Criminals for
Yeah.
sure. And I would love to know, like, what happened with her afterwards. Like, did she
I
become a
know.
lesbian? Because that's exactly what I would do.
Right?
Yeah, Roy and Becky said the craziest. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
that's fair. I agree.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you all for joining us. If you haven't eaten
Yeah.
dinner yet, I hope you enjoy your dinner. I'm gonna go
And
cook mine.
thank you, BB, for suggesting this. I really enjoyed putting it together. So
Oh, no
it's a
problem.
little different, but it was pretty cool. Mhm.
Well, thank you for doing the research on it. I really appreciate it.
You're
It was
welcome.
um I stopped myself from continuing to read because I was like, "Oh, I think Nettie will like this." But there was a couple of them in there that I had already read and I was like, "This is interesting."
Yeah,
So
you're like, "I think you would like this." I said, "I'm doing it." Yeah. Thank you,
So,
Shako.
yeah, thank you all for being here with us. We appreciate it. As always, wishing you much kindness and much love.
And we're sending love your way.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.
It's not playing. Okay, we're just gonna drop now.